Tom was telling me backstage that there are people that go into organizations and help them set up their information technology systems, and that what Tom does is he helps people set up legal systems. And I'm interested to learn more about what that means. I hope you are too. Please join me in welcoming Tom Bell.
It's nice we were able to start with heavy breathing. Hi, my name is Tom W. Bell. I want to talk to you today about Ulex, an open source legal system. We're going to talk today about Ulex, an open source legal system. And we'll start out by talking about why you might want to have an open source legal system, why maybe you don't want to trust governments to provide your legal system, about what Ulex is, and about how it works, both how it works and whether or not you'd ever actually get to use it. So let's start with why. Why might you want an open source legal system? What's the benefit? And let me ask you this. First of all, how's your Bill experience going? Are you having a good time? Is it okay? All right, because it's Bill. How about this one? How's that service for you? Is that good? Little no cheering? How about that one? How's the United States, the service, federal government services provided? You don't seem as excited. You know why that is? It's because you're smart. Because you're really smart. You're good looking too, by the way. But it's smartness that makes you skeptical about government services, and it makes you think legal systems are pretty important. In fact, this World Bank study shows, I had to pull out this data, but it shows if you look in the right places that the rule of law is the most valuable thing in the world. And it makes sense. You look at all these nice buildings and cars. People working in these buildings have contracts they can count on. That's where the real money is. If we got rid of the law, it's just piles of dirt and people wandering around not knowing what they're up to. So you have to have law to have wealth, and indeed, according to the World Bank, I didn't make this up, it's the most valuable thing in the world. There's another reason to care about the law, though, that's more important. If you don't get the law right, you live literally in darkness, figuratively too, but literally. This is a satellite photo of North and South Korea. You've probably seen this in other contexts. South Korea is bright with technology and growth and freedom. Basically the same country, same people, same language, same climate, same geography, right across the border. They are literally living in darkness, literally and figuratively. It's even worse than that. Well, I should say it's better than that. The good news is the law is something we can fix, and it really matters. It saves lives. If you can improve systems of governance by one standard deviation, yes, political scientists measure that, you can decrease infant mortality by 2/3 and increase income threefold in the long run. And that means lives saved. That's not just like a new t-shirt. That's like penicillin, saves lives. And the rule of law can do that for you if you improve the rule of law. Again, that's something that scientists have studied. And here's really the reason why you want to get the law right. Because if you get the law wrong, it's really bad. This is a nice chart, complicated chart, that shows that governments are really good at something, and it's killing innocent people. This chart shows all the various massacres during the 20th century and a little bit past. Here are the big numbers. There's USSR under Stalin, 20 million murdered, under Mao, 30 million. I got curious. How does the private sector do in competing with the government sector in killing people? So I ran the numbers for you. A very conservative, meaning skeptical, pessimistic, a bleak view of human nature, the worst possible estimate gives you 120+ million people killed by private sector people, murders in the street during the 20th century. But wait, we're not done, because governments are also really good at killing people in wars. So we add in that figure, we do all the math, we end up with, oh, it's close, but actually governments are better at killing people than the private sector. Way to go, governments. When governments go bad, they go really, really badly. So we care, we should care, you care, about getting the law right. So what's Ulex? How can Ulex help with this? Well, Ulex is a kind of flower. That's where I got the name. Actually, I came up with the name first, and then I got lucky. It turns out there's a flower also called gorse, whin, or furze. I just love those names. These are other names for Ulex. And there's some nice pictures of Ulex with butterflies, and you can see where I got, it's public domain, thank goodness, where you can see where I got the picture of Ulex. But that's not really what we're here to talk about. I'm not here to talk about this flower, although it is awesome. I'm here to talk about a legal operating system. And you hear that, and you probably think, a legal operating system? What the heck is that? You probably think I've heard of a computer operating system, and I want to tell you that Basically, code is code. In one case, we have formal algorithms that run systems of governance. That's the law. You can go read it. It's written down. If you follow the rules, you get government. They don't always follow the rules, but that's how it's supposed to work. Same thing with computers, really. Somebody sits down, they write formal algorithms, and it runs a computer. But, you know, end of the day, code is code. And why is that significant? When you probably think of computer code, you think of, you know, Apple or Windows. And that's a model we could use for government, but it's really not the best model because we need to open up the hood. When we're talking about a legal system running a government, we want it to be free for everybody to look at and maybe to tinker with. My friend Christine Peterson came up with this term open source, and I think if we're talking about a source code for government, we want it to be open source, not closed proprietary operating systems. Those aren't our models. Here are the models for Ulex. GNU, an open source computer operating system. Linux, a computer operating system, also open source. And there's Ulex. Oh, but it's missing something. There we go. And now it has a face. So Ulex is very much like these other operating systems. These are all open source operating systems. These two run computer systems. Ulex runs governments, basically. And there's more we need because every one of these other operating systems kind of have cute wordplay names. GNU means GNU's not Unix. Linux is a combination of Linus Torvalds' name and Unix. That's cute. So what do we do for Ulex? We got to have a cute thing. Lex is law. What is the U for? That's you. You put the U in Ulex. There's our cute little word thing. Okay, let's move on. So that's Ulex. How does it work? It's an open source legal operating system. So we're going to actually, right now, we're going to open up the hood on Ulex and kind of look inside. I won't totally geek out on this. I'm like any programmer. I drink my Mountain Dew, actually green tea, but I drink it and I sit at my laptop and I do this stuff. We're not going to get that deep into it, but I do want to tell you every legal system has two major components: procedure and substance. So let's look at Ulex and see what it does. And here's the first thing to note. Ulex is flag-free. All the rules in Ulex come from private sources, no flags. All from private sources. And I'll show you how this works. Let's look at the procedural rules in Ulex. So you have a fight with somebody and you're both running Ulex. How do you decide the dispute? And let me just note for a second here the way this works in government systems that we are competing with. Ulex is competing against, right, national governments for legal services. You got a dispute against, say, the federal government. You say, hey, federal government, you're violating my rights. They say, we'll be happy to hear your dispute. Where do you go? You go to the government. Oh, hey, government employees, will you hear my claim about how what you're doing is unconstitutional? I lost? Damn. I keep losing these disputes because you're going up against the government and asking it to judge itself. Ulex does it better. And it got this. Ulex, I did not make this up, people. This is how it works in international arbitration, where people are smart and they have a lot of money on the line and nobody has the power to shove it down anybody else's throat. So here we have, say, a German and a Spaniard in a large international trade contract, and they have a disagreement and they have to arbitrate. They can't agree on a single judge. The German says, I want a German judge. The Spanish person says, I want a Spanish judge. So instead, the German picks his or her, or it's a corporation's favorite judge. The Spaniard picks its favorite judge. And those two pick a third judge. And that is our panel of judges who decide the dispute. My friends, the day we can do this, when we have a claim against our government, will be a much better day than the one we live in. And I'm actually trying to make that happen, but that's another fight. That is step one of Ulex procedure. How we choose the judges, totally fair. We get that from international trade. I didn't make it up. It's a brilliant idea. And the next good idea is pendulum arbitration. Too often when you go to arbitrators, they split the baby. One person says, you owe me 100 million. The other says, I owe you 0. And the arbitrators say, 50 million. It's a terrible system because it drives people into conflict. It pushes them to the extremes. And it's nice to have a legal system where dismembering infants is not even on the table, okay? That's not an option. You don't split the baby in Ulex. Pendulum arbitration works like this. One party says 100 million, and the judges either have to choose that or they have to choose the other party's claim of 0. You either got to go with 100 million or 0. And what happens is this party says 100 million, and this party says 0. And then this party says, dang, I could lose this, and then I get 0. Maybe that is a little too ambitious. I'm going to go for 80 million. I'm going to go for 20 million because I don't want to lose 80 million. And the parties get to peace largely on their own. It's a legal system that encourages people to make peace on their own instead of racing for the extremes and making as big a fight as they can. Pendulum arbitration. And lastly, loser pays, the rule everywhere else pretty much in the world except the United States. Why we're not on that ball, I don't know. But there you go. That is the basic procedure. I found these sources in the private sector. I just combined them in this little Lego piece. So that's how you resolve conflicts in Ulex. What about the substantive rules? We have procedural rules and we have substantive rules. Where do those come from? I didn't make them up, and they don't come from any flag. They come from private sources like these. These are called the restatements of law. These happen to be the restatements of the law of torts. They're put together by learned lawyers, judges, academics, and basically there's a lot of groups that do this. Oh, you can't quite read it, but the United Nations, the American Bar Association, the Uniform Law Commission, and the American Law Institute are all private institutions that put out laws that regulate people's behaviors. Or rather, they're not binding laws. They just kind of put them out there. They say, here are some rules that we found that make sense to us. And you combine these blocks, and you can make a very complex system, very basic building blocks, which you can combine in a complex system. Last question. Okay, interesting academic discussion. How are you ever going to run Ulex? We have governments running the world. How are you ever going to get to run this? Well, let me explain how I see history unfolding by looking at computer science. The history of computer science can teach us about the history of governing institutions. Why? It's all code. Code is code. But computer systems have been developing more rapidly than government systems. Surprise, surprise. And what do we see when we look at the history of computer science? We see a couple of interesting developments, which I think we are going to see, in fact, are seeing in governments. First thing is, take you back to the era of shag carpets and bell-bottom jeans, the 1970s, Bell Laboratories, they come up with this great idea. When we write an operating system, let's make it so we can port it from this machine to this machine. We don't have to write an operating system from scratch every time we build a new computer. And we say, duh, but at one time that was like, huh, great idea. Other development is the advent of personal computing. Now we have, in the 80s and 90s, computers on desktops all throughout the country, the world, in offices and homes. And this results in competition between operating systems. Now Windows has to compete with Apple's operating system, and this makes the operating systems better. And that's going to happen to us and government. Here's Hong Kong. Father-son team took photos from Victoria Peak in Hong Kong, and basically Hong Kong shows in government context this phenomenon of taking an operating system and moving it to a new piece of hardware, because basically Hong Kong for a long time was running English common law. It was this little pocket of English law in China. And wow, did it work? Look at the growth. I don't know if you can see this. 34 years, we have high-rises all through Hong Kong. That's because they imported a legal system that worked. This inspired legal reforms in China, the special economic zones in China. This is Shenzhen across 25 years. Big changes there. And basically it's because the Chinese looked at Hong Kong and said, dang, we're over here on the Mao side of the fence starving, 30 million. And across the fence over there, they're wealthy. They have the highest per capita income, at least in the Pacific Basin, perhaps sometimes in the world. What are they doing that we're not doing? They got property rights. You Chinese, you might want to try that. They figured it out for themselves. They did it in Shenzhen and these other special economic zones, and it has lifted a lot of people out of poverty. That's wonderful. Dubai, in Dubai they said, we want to invite investors to the Middle East. They don't like Sharia law. Like you, they're smart. You're better looking, but they're smart. So they imported the English common law to Dubai, and over 13 years, wow, did it work. So now we have governments finally figuring out we can take legal operating systems and move them over. It turns out we're starting to get this personal PC effect too. There's lots of these special jurisdictions opening up all over the world. This is from my forthcoming book, Cambridge University Press, 2017. The number of these special jurisdictions is taking off, and it's also happening locally. In a way, we have the same thing happening with regard to municipal government when all you people, about 25% of you, move from municipal governments to private communities. So you're opting into a different legal system. Some of these private communities are huge. This is Highland, Colorado, 60,000 people, schools, homes, parks. Here's every building you can see in this picture. Co-op City in the Bronx, it's a residential cooperative community, 50,000, middle class, schools, parks, offices. Saudi Arabia, they're building Cake City. Going to be 2 million people, privately built, and the people living in the city will be able to own shares of that city. In Honduras, they got this new program, the ZETI program. Effectively, they're going to allow private parties to come in and set up special jurisdictions running their own legal systems. I've done some work there. I'll be flying there later this spring, and we hope to make things happen. And my friends at the Seasteading Institute, of course, are always looking for a good legal system, and they know where to find me. So we've talked about Ulex, an open source legal system. We talked about why you want it, because governments are not very good at the law, frankly. What it is, it's an open source legal operating system, how it works, and how you might actually get to use it. And here's the idea. To recur to Bill Preston Esquire, he inspired the name Bill and Ted. Bill said, be excellent to each other. And that's what Ulex is about. Be excellent to each other. This legal system can help you do it. Thank you.